Yeah, and I think a lot of people who see products, like a lot of new lash artists who are getting into the industry, they see products and they don't have a whole lot of familiarity with like how the industry works. Like the majority of the products you see from like smaller brands are going to be white labeled products. Like do you want to do the intro?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to My Lash to Brain Cells. I'm your host, Maddie Morris.
And I'm Elliot Morris.
And we have a juicy one for you.
Oh boy, is it juicy! But
I say that at the start of every single episode,
Do you?
but I mean it.
Because I think so far they have all been juicy.
We're not putting out something that isn't juicy.
We got the juice every time.
Elliot's going to be doing most of the chatting this episode because my tummy hurts.
And also, today is an episode for the boys. No, I'm kidding. But we are going to talk about, how would you describe what we're going to talk about?
I think we're going to break down a lot of misconceptions, and we're going to kind of break it down for everyone what a 7-figure or 6-figure beauty business owner is.
Because a lot, I think, at least I've seen it a lot.
Lately, people are throwing the terms around.
Is 7-figure beauty business owner the new 6-figure beauty business owner? Seems like it.
Yeah, the industry's changing. And let me tell you, the people that are killing it are spilling everything now. Like, the people that are doing really well are like, they have courses, they have seminars, they're speaking, they're helping, they're teaching. Like, they're not gatekeeping that anymore, and they're not just like stuffy salon owners. They're like actually trying to better people, is what I've noticed. And so,
which is great.
I think that there's always been 6- and 7-figure beauty business owners, obviously, but I think people are being a little more transparent about it now, because that's kind of just the way the culture is now. It's like that kind of is. It's cooler to not gatekeep now, and I think people are just getting a little more comfortable with like financial transparency.
Yep.
And I think that's great.
I think it's great.
I think if you're using it for good and not to flex on other people, like, that's awesome.
True. I think a good number of the people who are like online on Instagram and stuff talking about like their business, saying like we own a 7-figure business, whatever it is, I think a lot of them are doing it because one, like, I want to believe that a lot of them are doing it to like let people understand that this is something that's possible, and to help people know that like that is a thing that they could reasonably hope to achieve. And then a lot of them are trying to help people get there.
And then some people are just lying.
And some people,
but
some
it's
people,
easy to spot.
Yeah, and some people are just doing it to flex. But one thing that I have noticed is that in a lot of it, people will like throw the word around, but no one really explains what they mean by it.
Yeah, and I think it's important, just like
I feel like it's important for you guys to understand, like, when you see someone on Instagram saying, oh, I own a 7-figure salon, or I'm a 7-figure beauty business owner, like, what are they saying?
Like, are they saying that they're just like bringing in?
Are they saying they're making $1 million a year? Probably not. We'll go into that.
We'll go into it. And also, I think it's just important to be wary, because I think the selling point of a lot of education in the beauty industry is like, make 6 figures, be your own boss, right? And that kind of catchy tagline, I think, shouldn't just be a catchy tagline, because a lot of the people that are like saying that to sell their courses are making nowhere near, mid 6 figures. Also, people that brag about making 6 figures,
generally they're making $100,000, and 6 figures is from $100,000 to $999,000.
Yeah, and it's like, babe, you're like gross. Like, your gross profit is $100K.
Your gross receipts is $100K.
Yeah.
Like, you're not bringing that home.
What's that after taxes, baby?
What's that after taxes?
And so I think it's just important as like a consumer, like, not just someone just trying to like elevate their business.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to understand what that means and what you should be striving toward, because maybe you are like a 6-figure business, you don't even know it.
Yeah, true.
Because you're expecting to bring home $1 million, after everything at the end of every year.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily what a 6-figure.
You mean a 7-figure.
Yeah.
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 And also, I feel like the terms have become a little bit chuggy, just because everyone's throwing them around. They're like, 6-figure beauty boss. I own a 7-figure business. It's like, okay, like, I get it. It's like a catchy way to talk about it, but like, it, to me at this point, it does feel a little chuggy. And like, we have been seeing this, and we're like, okay, I was interested in doing like a little A/B test, see like, does this affect anything? So we filmed an ad where Madison was saying, I like own a 7-figure beauty business, and turns out that ad converted really well. So one of the reasons that people talk about it is because it does work for getting sales.
We do on a 7-figure beauty business.
Well, that is true, and we're going to talk about exactly what that means.
Yeah.
So when someone says,
and also I think it is not necessarily like a bad thing, but I think it can be a good thing when like I think people should be getting financial advice from people that like know what they're talking about.
absolutely, and I'm not saying we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But
we're transparent.
We're doing all right.
But we're transparent with people.
Yeah, honestly, that's what I figure is like I can tell you what worked for us.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to work for you, but I'll tell you like what we did and what worked for us.
Absolutely.
And like that's all I can do.
Yeah.
I don't know what'll work for everyone else. We tried a bunch of stuff and some of it worked and this is the stuff that worked. But I think like as a consumer, if you understand like what people mean when they're saying like I'm a 7-figure beauty business owner, like it'll make you a much more like knowledgeable consumer, and it'll help you make better decisions of who to listen to, where to put your money. Like if you understand actually like what they're saying, and if you understand like what the meanings behind it could be, you'll be able to understand like when things are adding up, when things aren't. Like you can kind of figure out who the real people and who the fakes are. So number one thing that it could mean if someone is saying that they are a 7-figure beauty business owner, it's a very vague term. So there's like a bunch of different possible meanings. It could mean that they're doing over $1 million in profit per year, but probably not. So generally, if someone is profiting, which a lot of times when people say that, they're hoping that you think that they're making $1 million a year profit, which 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, they're not. And the reason is because if someone was making $1 million profit from their business, like $1 million per year was going into their bank account for them to keep, they would be calling themselves like an 8-figure beauty business owner, because their business would be worth far over $1 million, because businesses are valued at a multiple of what they earn. So it's probably not that. And they, if someone was making over $1 million, they did at the very least be calling themselves like a multi 7-figure beauty business owner or something like that. So it just doesn't mean that. So just know that off the bat. The second thing it could mean is over $1 million gross revenue. Now, this is going to be a lot of people who say like, we own a 7-figure beauty business. This is where we're at right now. So we are like in this chunk. I would say this is probably the majority of people who are like talking about these terms, where so that basically means every year you are collecting from people are giving you over $1 million total, which would break down to like over $87,000 a month. And so if you're getting over $87,000 gross receipts, so gross receipts is just the money you're taking in, then you would have a gross revenue of over $1 million a year. Now, gross is going to be very different from what you keep at the end. I remember gross because it's gross because you can't take it home. So I'm like, ew. Ew, I wish I could take this home. Why can't I take it home?
Remember.
That's how I remember it.
When it was being explained to me in like high school or something.
Yeah, you're like, gross. Why can't I bring this home? And the so then that's gross. Then you have net profit off of that. And so net profit off of that is going to be like the actual profit of the business. And so that's generally, for the majority of businesses, going to be far less than $1 million. So say you are, and it really depends, the way it breaks down really depends on the type of business that you're running. And we're going to go into that a little later in the podcast, like how that kind of breaks down. But gross revenue, a lot of people will talk about that. Like, my business is bringing in over $1 million a year. That's great. That means not all that money is ending up in your pocket, but I would consider that like a reasonable business. It'd be reasonable to call yourself like a 7-figure beauty business owner if that was the case. Then the third bucket, which I think it's a little squirrely, is the people who say they have like a 7-figure business and they mean that they have a business where the business is valued over $1 million, which businesses, like I said earlier, are valued as a multiple of their earnings. And generally, it'll be valued at a multiple of the EBITDA, which EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So your business, say you have a business, you're making $200,000 a year in profit from your business. Say you're bringing in $500,000 a year, $200,000 of it is profit, and you are like, okay, I have this $200,000 profit. Maybe it's $200,000 EBITDA, which if it's EBITDA, it still wouldn't all be ending up in your pocket because that's earnings before your interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Amortization is like any loans that you're paying off. And interest and taxes, like those are all pretty straightforward. And if you were in that camp and you're bringing home like $200,000 a year EBITDA, then you're like, okay, well, I have a business. Let's say I think my business is valued at a 5x multiple and I'm making $200,000 a year. So that means my business must be worth over $1 million. That's, I don't know about that because it is a valid way to talk about business, but it's generally more applicable to larger businesses because like a public business, it's like listed on the S&P 500 or listed on the New York Stock Exchange or something. Those businesses, those big corporations are valued as a multiple of their earnings because it's basically an entity. Like you can buy stock in it. It's its own thing. But a lot of these businesses where they are, maybe it's a like guru, they're doing like education, they're doing beauty services and beauty education. And they're like, oh, I'm making $200,000 a year. Like my business must be valued at $1 million. But the thing is with that, if that person went and tried to sell their business, they wouldn't be able to get any money for it because the business is all built around them. So is their business really worth $1 million? Not really, because the business has zero value aside from the like work that they're putting into it. So that's definitely some people who talk about that, talk about having like a 7-figure business, and that's we're not even considering the people who are just lying about it. But if someone's telling the truth, those are the 3 things that they probably mean. And I think it's reasonable to assume that if someone seems legit, they seem like they know what they're talking about, and they say, oh, I own a 7-figure business, probably what they mean is that they're bringing in over $1 million of revenue a year, and they're keeping some percentage of that. Now, the percentage of that is going to differ based on what business it is. And I have these listed out from our least favorite to our favorite. I think our favorite is probably pretty obvious. Well, it might not be. It might not be. It could be 2 things. But our least favorite, like least likely that we would get into in like the beauty space, like businesses that we've considered, that we've looked at, that you've probably seen and heard people who are in these businesses are talking about like how much their business is worth. The first one is spas, like day spas, salons, that sort of thing, where someone has a space, they have employees, the employees are doing services. Also, I don't think the sound's off on your phone because I keep hearing.
No, I had to. I'm filming a reel right now.
Oh, you're doing a reel? Nice. Cute.
I'm girl bossing right now.
Sorry, I'm girl bossing. You're multitasking while we do the podcast. Sorry.
I'm supposed to reel right now.
Well,
guys, I do all my own stunts. You think that
You
I
do.
just wake up in the morning and stuff gets posted for me and someone else, and I have employees taking clients and all this stuff.
I don't think anyone thinks that.
Well, I'm a one-woman show, baby.
I don't. So, if someone owns a spa,
You're doing great, Elliot.
oh, that you think this makes sense?
This
Do you
makes
think
a lot
that
of
people
sense.
are entertained? Okay.
I'll ask him.
The thing is, I think this stuff is very fascinating. I think this stuff is so interesting, and I think it's really useful
It's very interesting
to like
me.
talk about it because it's like
I wish I listened to this podcast when I was starting out.
it's just
Because
I think it's
because when Lash artists were talking about hitting 6 figures, I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, is that what they're taking home? Is that what they're making? Is
Yeah.
that like
yeah,
how's
it's
that?
a lot more achievable when you know exactly what it is.
Exactly. That's the thing. If you can define the term, it is easier to achieve.
Absolutely. So true. So, back to what I was saying. Spas, if someone's a spa owner, they're saying, oh, I'm a 7-figure spa or salon owner. Like, I've seen a lot of those on Instagram. That means they have employees, they have a space, they have a lease, they have, they're buying the products, they have probably a receptionist, and then their employees are taking clients every day. generally, if someone is like, oh, I'm a 7-figure spa owner, they're saying that they're bringing in over $1 million in gross revenue, gross receipts per year. And generally, with spas, the profit margin on spas, from what I've seen, is going to hover around 10 to 20%, depending on a ton of factors. Like there are definitely spas out there that are doing over 20% profit. There's definitely spas out there that are not even break even. Like I would say generally on average, like you walk down the street, you see a spa that seems to be doing pretty well, they're going to be hovering between 10 and 20% margins, which means that if the owner of that spa owns a 7-figure spa, they're bringing in $1 million a year in revenue, they're bringing home somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 a year, which is good. Like that's not shabby at all. But if they're at that 10% margin, then they're really not doing they're not doing as crazy insane as a lot of people would think, hearing that they own $1 million spa or their spa is making $1 million a year. Because if you're only doing 10% on that, that's $100,000. It's a good living, but it's like off of $1 million, like it seems a little small. And it's one of the reasons that we never considered getting into a spa is because I am very scared of running businesses with that small of profit margins, because the margin for error is so small. Like if your costs rise,
like if COVID happens,
if
your employees leave you, there
are so many things that could impact your bottom line and bring that profit margin from 10% down to 0 so easily. Like your costs go up by 10%, your profit goes down by 10%, and then your entire profit's gone.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that could happen. Spas, kind of scary. If someone's in a spa and they're like a absolute like monster at it and they're just killing it and they're doing like 25-30% margins, like that's a whole nother story. Like they're doing a great job. But a lot of spas that I've seen hover around like 10 to 20%, which is a little scary. It's a good business, but it's something that you have to keep a really close eye on it to make sure that those like your costs don't get out of hand, and make sure you're managing everything well. And that's why a lot of spa owners will talk about how, oh, I was making more money as an independent artist, because a lot of times it's true. Like a lot of times if you are an independent artist, your overhead is really low. You're just renting a space. You're taking clients. Independent artists can absolutely make over $100,000. But then as soon as you start hiring people, you expand your space, the overhead goes up so fast. If you're not really careful about it, your take home profit at the end of the day is going to be even less. And if it's even less, like in my opinion, why even do it? You know? So that's spas. Next, we have businesses with products. So we're obviously most familiar with the lash industry, so I'm going to talk about like lash product brands generally. So there's kind of going to be two buckets that I would put lash product brands in. One is brands that just white label. So they buy products from a manufacturer.
This is so important that we're breaking it down for everyone that's like new to the industry, because I think like
that is true.
This kind of terminology is so foreign to people that are just getting into the industry.
True. Yeah, and I think a lot of people who see products, like a lot of new lash artists who are getting into the industry, they see products and they don't have a whole lot of familiarity with like how the industry works. Like the majority of the products you see from like smaller brands are going to be white labeled products, like across the board. Which means that,
which isn't a bad thing, because it's like, I'm sure that they've done their research and everything on like what.
Yeah, they've found the manufacturers that make products they like.
Yeah, it's just very hard for an indie brand to like have its own like
manufacturing. Oh, it's near impossible.
Pretty much all lash products are made overseas.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, almost all of them. I think Live Bay does some in the United States.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I think they're one of the only ones that do them in the U.S.
Yeah.
So, but that segues me to the other types of product brands are the ones that are manufacturing their own products. And that could be either they have a very close tie with a manufacturer where they are able to like deeply customize products, which I would consider still kind of manufacturing your own products, because you're not just white labeling anymore. You're actually like influencing the way the products are produced. You have say over the manufacturing methods and what materials they're using and how they're actually creating the products, as opposed to like a smaller indie brand that would generally just be picking and doing some slight customization and doing like their own boxes. So like white labeling would mean you get something with like a white label and then you put your own branding over it. That's kind of where the term comes from. And so like white labeled lash brands, it can range because it depends on what quality of products they're getting for their from their like wholesaler, and then what they're trying to sell them for. But generally the margins will hover around 50%, plus or minus, like it could be plus or minus 20, honestly. Like I mean, I wouldn't say plus 20, but it could be down to like 30% of their cost. And that's just kind of based on, you know, what kind of manufacturers they're able to find, like how much they're selling the products for. So generally, if they're running a 50% margin on it, that would mean like you're buying a tray for $10, you're reselling it for $20, something like that. And Lash brands are able to do that because they're putting in the work to do the branding, and they're also picking stuff that they like, that they think their customers will like, and then they're also providing the value to like you as the consumer, you as the lash artist, of purchasing the minimum order quantities. Like if a independent lash artist was like hearing this and they're saying, oh, why don't I just like white label my own stuff? Generally, manufacturers will require you to purchase a minimum order quantity of products, which is generally in the thousands of dollars. So like if you're not in a position where you're prepared to spend, you know, thousands of dollars on like just trays of lashes, not even including like all the other products you would need, then it would be impossible for you to white label something. And then it's also, it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of back and forth. The shipping times are really long. Generally, if you're buying stuff from overseas, they're going to ship it via freight ships because the shipping is far cheaper shipping it over actual ships than shipping through the air. And so it'll take like weeks or months to get to you from the time you place the order. So all this is stuff that I don't think brands that white label their products is bad at all, because they are actually providing like this service of dealing with all the annoying stuff that like the end consumer wouldn't want to deal with. But it is easier to get into. There's like a lower barrier of entry, and generally they're not going to have as much influence over the products themselves. Now, the second box is companies that manufacture their own stuff. This is going to be like generally the bigger companies, and they're going to have either like really close ties with their manufacturers, or they're going to be doing their own manufacturing. And I don't think there's not a ton that do their own manufacturing. Generally, it's going to be just people who have really, they have really developed relationships with manufacturers, and they have like their secret manufacturers that like they will never tell anyone about because it's like, this is my factory. And those will generally, because they're doing so much volume, they have a long history of like placing high volume orders. They're doing a lot of stuff. They handle generally, these brands will handle things like doing the branding and stuff themselves. So a lot of times they'll like buy the raw materials not even packaged, like buy the lashes not even packaged. They'll have a manufacturer like do the manufacturing, and then they'll like the brand will handle the packaging themselves, and then they're able to save money that way. And those brands will generally be hovering like 20, maybe under 20 to like 30% for the cost of their goods. So like say they would be buying a tray of lashes for $5 all in, and then selling it for, that would be $15, something like that. So they'd be like 30% margins, or it could be like $5 and $20. But then after that, there's a bunch of other expenses. So all that money, like the other 70% of that, say they have 30% products cost, that other 70% isn't going in the brand's pocket, like at all, because they have tons of overhead. They'll have employees, they'll have all their warehousing. Like the big brands need huge warehouses to hold all of their stuff because they're placing huge orders and they have to deal with like a lot of demand. And generally these orders, like I said, will take weeks or months to come in. So they have to have like way stocked up. So they'll have to pay for real estate. And then marketing is a huge expense for a lot of these brands. And that's actually one of the reasons that you'll see a lot of brands do trainings, because it is a very effective way to do marketing for their brand while also not being very expensive at all. Generally, brands will make a little bit of money on it. But one thing you'll notice generally, if you're looking at trainings, is trainings from brands will be cheaper because the training cost is kind of subsidized by the fact that a lot of people who take those trainings will end up purchasing the products from that brand, which makes sense because like if you're trained using a certain brand of lashes, then like why would you change? Like why would you like might as well just keep using what's working, what you learned with. And so brands know this, and so they're like, okay, that's why a lot of brands offer trainings for
back.
Hey, welcome back.
I posted my reel.
Nice. Congratulations. So yeah, so that's it. So generally lash brands will hover around like 10-20% margins at the end of the day, like profit margins. So if a lash brand, like this would be like a small medium lash brand is doing over like $1 million a year in sales, then the owner of that brand could be making $100,000-$200,000 a year. It's kind of similar to a spa, but it really depends on it's similar profit margin to a spa. The business is totally different, but it kind of depends on whether or not they're doing a lot of like business investment too, because a lot of these businesses could be just plowing all the money back into the business, like into expanding, into buying more inventory, into doing new products that aren't going to show up on the shelves for like months or like a year or more. And like famously, Amazon, the biggest company in the world, has like barely ever made an actual profit because
I was shocked when I found that out.
Right? Like Amazon, biggest company in the world, they barely ever make a profit because they reinvest everything back into the business, which is why a bunch of people always like get super angry. They're like, Amazon doesn't pay any taxes. It's like, well, because it doesn't make any profit.
Yeah.
And then people are like, well, why doesn't it make any profit? It makes so much money. It's like, well, they reinvested all
That's
into
why it gets
getting
so
bigger. That's why it's the
huge
biggest
every
company in the
year.
world. Like it couldn't become the biggest company in the world without reinvesting
But
literally
people
everything
don't,
it made.
I mean, people don't know.
No, people don't know. But now you do. Now you do know.
Now you do.
Now we're getting into the good juicy
You always
stuff.
learn something on my Lash 2 brain cells.
Always learn something.
People are thrown off because they're like, ooh, funny name, must be a funny podcast.
Ha ha ha. No.
No.
We tricked you. You had to sit down through an economics lecture
We
for
put
an
the
hour this
business
time.
and funny business.
That's good. That's pretty funny. Okay, now moving on to the businesses that I in particular am a pretty big fan of.
Mm-hmm.
And number one is going to be salon suites.
Yeah.
Interesting concept.
Yeah.
Do you like salon suites?
I love them. I love them. But I don't like other salon suites.
Oh, calling out who? Tell them by name.
No, I'm kidding. No, just side note. I think salon suites run by people that don't understand like the aesthetics or beauty industry.
Salon suites run by hedge funds are bad.
They literally are the most haunted
And
freaking
there are
places
some.
ever.
There are some, and you probably know them.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, salon suites, like small independent salon suites owned by like estheticians or people in beauty.
Owned by people in
Generally,
the industry
amazing.
in the last like
Wonderful.
decade that aren't absolutely archaic. I think are awesome. I think it's the way the industry's going. I think there's a lot of amazing, and literally there are so many amazing salons and salon owners.
True.
But just like salons, there's also a lot of salon suites that are run by people that just don't care, or they're just investors, or it's just a piece of real estate to them.
Yep.
But I love business-wise,
great business.
Business-wise, I mean, it's what I've invested my entire life into. But I love the concept of salon suites.
It's great. And one interesting thing about salon suites is like we were throwing out like probable general profit margins for like other types of businesses, but like salon suites, it can vary so much.
Yeah.
Like
people are always like, should I open a salon suite? And I'm like, you can't ask me that without
like,
telling me
it depends on
every
so much.
single numeric.
Like every detail about what you're doing.
I need to know every detail of your entire life and all your finances, and we need like a 5-hour sit down meeting.
Yeah.
Like I can't even do it in a mentoring call.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like there's just no cookie cutter advice. And like someone messaged me today and they were like, hey, could you make like an ebook on how to open salon suites? And I was like, no, because it's so complicated. It's so complicated, and like I cannot sell something that I cannot guarantee you results on because it depends on your area, your expertise, your finances, your capital, your investors, your renters, your reputation.
True.
It's so much. I think I mean, it might honestly be safer to open a salon with employees than a salon suite.
It might. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, we just did what worked for us.
Yeah. We just did what worked for us.
I don't honestly have enough like I haven't
It's honestly just different strokes for different folks.
I mean, honestly, I would love, like, we generally don't have.
Is that naughty? Is that a naughty saying?
No, I don't.
Do people say that?
No, I think that's like a normal saying. Why would it be naughty?
I heard that once. I think that's like just means
Different
like,
strokes for different folks. It's like different people do different stuff.
that's what I thought it meant, but I
It
don't.
does. There's no way that that's bad.
Well, I need to look it up. And
I've heard grandparents say that. Like, no way that's bad.
Okay, I'm Googling it. Hold on. Different things appeal to different people.
Yeah, there you go. Whew, thank goodness. Almost got canceled.
Oh my gosh.
Could you imagine? Almost turned into Call Her Maddie.
Hi, Maddie gang.
Hi, Maddie gang. So, where was I?
We were talking about salon suites.
Oh, yes. So one really interesting thing to me about salon suite. Oh, no, what I was saying is I would be really interested. We don't generally have like guests on the pod, but I would be really interested to talk to like someone who owns like a spa and like compare the numbers. Like see like, okay, what is the actual comparison between like a spa that's doing well and like salon suites that are doing well? Because like, I don't want to toot our own horn or anything, but I think our salon suites are doing pretty well.
They're doing well.
And
they couldn't be doing better.
That is true. That is definitely true.
They are fully rented.
They are fully
with
rented.
A very long wait list.
And yeah, that's the crazy thing is from here on out,
like,
I don't
like
think.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
From here on out, I don't think we're gonna have any vacancy in any of the rooms.
Like honestly, the only I can't even. Like actually physically they can't be doing better because if you think about like the metric of success for salon suite is how full they are.
Yeah, being full.
And like the rates of our rooms are like they're not even competitive. They're the highest in the area.
They are very
and
high.
the wait list is a mile long.
That
and
is true.
We just had a room come open in March and we already have it.
Yeah,
rented.
we filled it like 6 months early.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's honestly they're doing it fantastic.
Not to flex, it's just the people listening are like my friends, and I just want to like let them know that we're
that is
fine.
true. Well, yeah. So I think what's really interesting is I've heard like on other podcasts and stuff from like other people doing salon suites that some of them are not like super profitable, and then I like have seen from what we're doing is like ours are pretty profitable. So I think it really depends on like just the details of it.
It is the details.
Like it really is because really the big thing, the really important thing with it is like the numbers you're working with are big enough to the point that like if you do salon suites 10% better than someone else, your profit is going to be like 10 times more.
Yeah.
Like the difference in that like in the end of like what you're able to charge, because the thing is like with something like salon suites you have fixed overhead. Like we have rent, we have electric, we have our utility bills, and we have like maintenance, and that's like basically fixed. Like you can kind of average out what maintenance is going to be over the course of a year, or over the course of 5-10
or
years.
if you're us, you just do it all yourself.
Or if you're us, you just do it all yourself.
You just hire your friends.
Yeah, you just hire your friends.
Anytime
and then
something breaks or we want to like do some cosmetic upgrade, we're like, hey, who wants to build?
Hey,
this?
who wants?
We just have Elijah come and he just like builds us the sickest.
He does a great job.
Just get good friends that know what they're doing.
And after you have like covered those base fixed expenses, everything on top of that is profit.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it is a fairly optimized industry because it's based on like what the real estate goes for in your area. So like if you are able to charge 10% more than the person across the street because like your place is nicer, like you have some edge over them. You're able to charge a little more. People want to rent from you more. You're not making 10% more money. Oftentimes you're making like 30% more money.
Yeah.
And so like with ours, and
then if you have amenities like a training room to rent out,
exactly,
or a photo studio,
well, and these are all the things that allow you to rent it for higher. And like our like kind of edge that we have, one is like the interior design of the space. Like it's a very pretty, bright, nice space. We have a lot of exterior rooms, which a lot of places don't have, which is definitely a benefit of us over a lot of other salon
exterior
suites.
Meaning windows with
rooms with windows, like those are able to rent out for a lot more.
And like the culture, like I think,
and the culture and the coffee shop.
Yeah,
the coffee shop is absolutely an amenity that like most salon suites aren't going to have. And so like our studios that we've done, going off of last year's revenue, because like we have a we're going to be doing a like 1 year anniversary special.
And the 1 year anniversary special, we're gonna, because we don't want to.
We'll go in the numbers for it then.
And we want to like talk about what we learned and mistakes we made on our 1 year anniversary of opening, because it's like we still have 3 more months of learning to
We
do.
still have 3 more months of learning.
Yeah.
You don't want to miss out on that.
Who knows what could happen in the next 3
Anything
months?
could happen. But like
Mistakes could be made.
based on our first year, which is the worst year, is going to be the worst year because from now on, fingers crossed, knock on wood, hopefully we're going to stay 100% capacity for the next 10 years, which I think it is likely to assume we're going to be pretty close to that. We'll probably have some like little areas of vacancy, but it's not going to be like, we're not going to be hovering around 80% capacity or anything like that. We're going to be hovering around like 95 to 100% capacity.
Also, just a side note before we jump into the next point, I think it's just important for anyone wanting to open a salon suite, because a lot of people that listen to my last 2 brain cells, they want to open salon suites.
Yeah.
And I think it's important.
Yeah.
It is so important to know what capacity you need to be rented at for your business to be profitable.
Yes, like
that's the number you need. And
that is true. That is
for
true.
us, I remember when we were when we owed the contractor like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I remember I asked Elliot one night, I go, what do we need for this business to be successful? And Elliot goes to his computer. It's like 3 a.m. I'm crying, and Elliot, you know how he is, he crunches in all the numbers, and Elliot goes, we need to have 8 of the rooms rented immediately for 1 year to be profitable.
Yep.
And he was like, and I was like, oh my gosh. So that became my job.
Yeah.
To have 8 of those rooms, 8 out of 14 at the time, 8 out of 14 fully rented by the time we even opened.
Yep.
And that was my goal. And so
that was,
know your
know your numbers. Like that, and that 8 of the rooms rented. So we needed 5 of the rooms rented in order to cover the costs of the space.
And 8 to be profitable.
And then 8 for us to be able to pay back the loans we took out for the build out.
Yeah.
And so then once we had 5, we're like, okay, at least we're not losing money on rent every month.
Yeah.
Like we could, if worst case scenario, we could pay back the loans from like Madison taking clients. But then once we got 8, we're like, okay, the business is like stable on its own. And then once we got like 12, then we're like, okay, like we're doing
cruising.
great. We're cruising.
Yeah.
We're and now we're at capacity, and we've actually decreased the capacity of the space because like we're using one of the rooms now as this studio.
Yeah, this is one of the salon suites.
And so
you guys.
like, yeah, this was one of the salon suites, and we realized that
But it mattered more to us.
well, no, it honestly for the business is more valuable for us to use this to do the podcast, I think, than the cash we could be getting from renting this out.
Absolutely.
So we basically, Lightheart LLC, like the education side of the business, is renting space from the studio side of the business. So like if we're including, this is actually not even including us paying ourselves rent for it, but we're hovering around like 50 to 60% gross revenue. So that's like, or actually, sorry, net revenue. We're hovering around 50 to 60%. So that would be revenue after we pay our like rent and utilities on it. And then say if we were going to, I was like calculating this out, if we were going to, based on last year's numbers or the numbers up to like this point, which are going to be worse than like all the numbers going forward, but just for like a conservative estimate, if we were going to amortize the build out over the 10-year lease that we have here, so basically if we took 10 years to pay off our build out that we did, like the investment we did right at the beginning, then our profit on the space based on last year's numbers would be 30% of our gross revenue, which is honestly pretty good. That means if we were bringing in $15,000 a month, we'd be making $5,000 a month. And that would be assuming we got loans for the entire thing and did not pay them off on any sort of sped up timeline. We just paid them off over 10 years, which is, I think, honestly, very good for real estate. Like this real estate is higher touch than like residential or commercial real estate, which is why it justifies a higher return, like a 30% return. Cause like 30% return is like unheard of for like regular real estate. But because like we're renting out by the room, like we do more to it. It's just like if you were renting out like student housing, you would be getting a higher return than if you were renting like a single family home.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on that before we move
But
on.
yeah, I think it's really interesting that like if we were amortizing it, I think based on like this year's numbers, we're probably hovering more. We're gonna like over the course of the space, we're probably gonna hover around closer to like 40 to 50% margins after everything, which is, I think, pretty great. Like insane for real estate. And I think it's about as much as we could hope for from the studios, which is crazy good. I'm super happy with that. And then now we have the last business that could be a 7-figure beauty business is going to be an education business, which is my personal favorite. And this is where I think we're going to be focusing our efforts going forward, because the beautiful thing about a digital education business is that you got 100% gross margins.
Per.
I think that's crazy. Like, if you sell digital products, you have zero cost of fulfillment. Like, you sell a digital product, you are selling education, you have a one-time like capital investment, you invest in it one time, and then once you've made it and you spent the time to make it, you put in the money to make it, then you can sell as many of them as you want forever, and each new customer doesn't cost you anything for digital products. It's insane. It's like, this is something that has never existed in the world until like 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
Like, it's really insane. Like, digital products are such an amazing business. It's like, if you can figure out how to get knowledge and create educational products that are valuable to people that you can sell in a digital form, like, that is absolutely, I think, personally, the best business that you can get into. And obviously that is why we are spending so much time on it. That's why we focus so hard on selling digital products, because they're just, you do have costs. You have like
your
costs.
website.
You have your website, and then for digital products,
also you still have to pay taxes on them.
You do, yeah. You still have to pay taxes.
Don't be a silly goofball.
Yeah,
don't
do
get
not,
it twisted, girl.
Yeah, pay your taxes. I know they suck. But you do have some like overhead expenses with you. You have your website, but then I also consider ad spend to be kind of an integral expense.
You have to, yeah.
In digital products, because
you can exhaust your organic audience really easily.
Exactly. You can, because you can only, the thing about like digital education products, the one downside of them is that generally you can only sell them once. With like education products, because it's like, once
people get the information.
Yeah, when someone learns the thing, they're not going to keep buying the thing. It's not like gasoline where you need it every week.
And it's kind of like, I mean, one of our strategies is like, it has to be valuable enough that they just continually buy more digital products from
Exactly.
us. So we just keep putting new things out that the same audience will find value from.
Exactly. And our strategy is that we try to make each of those products so valuable that when people buy them, then they say, wow, this is really good. What else have they made? And so that the products help
Let me
sell.
get on the email list.
Exactly.
Let me tell my friends.
So that the products themselves are the advertising, and they help sell the other products.
Yeah.
So like, that's one of the reasons that like we did that huge sale for going independent, is because we wanted to get as many people seeing the stuff we made as we could, so that then they see it and they're like, wow, this is like super helpful. And then hopefully that helps them get to the point where they can get a lot of value out of our other stuff. Because one of the things in like the digital space, with digital education in particular, is there are a lot of people who sell crap, who sell not good stuff.
Beep, beep, boop, boop.
And so
some girl messaged me this morning and she said, hey, I want to buy your retention ebook that you just launched. I just launched an ebook called Understanding Retention from Mystery to Mastery. It's on sale right now. But this girl reached out to me and she's like, hey, I really want to buy your Understanding Retention ebook, but I recently bought a retention ebook and I spent $80 and it was 1 page long.
1 page?
She said, how many pages is yours? I was like, what?
That's insane.
Are you?
That's so sad.
That is crazy.
That is sad.
Ours is 60 pages. But what is wrong? But it's like, that's the thing. But that person that's scamming people and selling them.
It makes it harder for everyone else to sell stuff that's actually valuable.
It makes some of us have to work extra hard.
It makes us have to work extra hard.
Oh, come on, girl. And then number 2, it's like they're cheating themselves, because that person maybe was trying to make
it's a very short-term
It's short-term
mindset.
because that person could have been selling them, product after product after product, but they have one-time customers that probably dispute everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
our dispute rate is extremely low. I'm very proud of that.
In the ground. And yeah, I just wanted to note that I see every order that comes through, and a lot of the names that come up are so familiar to me. They're like, they repeat. They wait they wait for everything to come out.
I would say the majority of our sales at this point are repeat sales.
Mm-hmm.
We get that's not even like a question. Like, we get far more sales from like repeat customers than we do from like new customers coming in, which gives us a very big advantage compared to like other people who may be selling digital products, because it means that we can spend more to acquire a customer because those customers are more valuable to us on the back end.
Yeah, it's like Starbucks.
Exactly. The LTV of those customers is higher. Like Starbucks, the LTV, the lifetime value of a Starbucks customer is $14,000.
Yeah.
Like, so Starbucks knows if they gain one extra customer, then that customer to them is worth 14 grand. So Starbucks is able to spend a ton of money on advertising, even if they're spending $100 to get one new client, even if they're spending $500 to get one new customer, they know that that's worth it because that customer over their lifetime is going to be worth $14,000. Now, there's other stuff you have to take into account, like the time value of money. You have to do like a discounted rate of return. So it's like the $14,000 is going to be over their whole lifetime. So like $1 20 years from now is going to be less valuable to you than $1 right now. So they can't spend like $13,000 to get a customer that's going to give them $14,000 because then they would like be bankrupt immediately. But because our lifetime value of all our customers is so high, because someone will buy something from us, and a lot of times, like on average, we can see it in the numbers, like not everyone will, but on average, they'll buy like 1 or 2 or 3 more products. And then that means that like, it's okay for us to spend $100 on ads to get one sale, even though it doesn't really make much money, because we're able to monetize so much on the back end.
Yeah, and we have faith in the products. What is our next point? I feel like this episode's long.
Oh, is it too long? I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I just think this stuff is so...
No, it's so fascinating.
Oh, we're actually almost done. So the reason...
I don't want to rush it. I was just saying like...
Oh, no, I'm out at the end.
Cool.
On my thing.
I'm loving it.
The reasons I wanted to talk about this is, one, because I think it's very interesting, but then also because I think that thinking about these types of businesses and thinking about like what are the pros and cons of each can help you make a better, like more informed decision to build your own business.
Yeah.
And like the goal of this isn't to like try and dunk on other types of businesses. Like obviously we are very into the type of business that we're in, but there are definite advantages to like the other types of businesses. Like one huge advantage of products is that you can keep selling them. Like we can't.
People run out of their lashes. They
exactly.
need to buy lashes.
If you make a if you make a lash brand that people like using, like
there's a need for everything. There's a need for great product lines. There's a need for salon owners. There's a need for spas. 100%. There's a need for everything. You 100%. Know, we're just passionate about what we do because we do it and we do it for a reason.
Absolutely.
We didn't just throw a pen in a hat. We're like, are we going to open salon suites? Yes. Okay. You know, like it made sense to us.
Yep. And we looked at the numbers for it, and we one thing that I do notice looking back is when we were looking at the numbers for this studio, we were more optimistic than we like the cash flow ended up actually being. But the thing is, our optimistic assumptions were such a good return that although we missed those like optimistic assumptions, we still have a great return.
Yeah.
Like if we had actually hit what we were assuming that we would do, we're like, oh, we'll be able to rent these out for this much, and the build out will cost this much because this is how much the general contractor quoted us. Like our rate of return would be like 100% per year, which looking back, not realistic, but we didn't hit that. But we're still way above 10%. We're still way above 0. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it worked out. But yeah, that's the whole thing. I just wanted to talk about that. I thought it was really interesting. I like talking about the numbers. So
I think people are going to like have their notepads out.
Yeah, this is going to be our lowest retention episode. I think people are going to fall asleep.
No, I don't. No, I really don't think so. I think like we should preface this episode in the beginning of like get a pen and paper because there's so much they can take from this episode. It was very valuable.
Yeah, great. 48 minutes. Not too bad. At least we didn't break an hour.
Yeah.
Well, any notes to add, Madison?
And also, I mean, money aside, finances aside, 6, 7, 8 trillion, whatever's aside. I think if you're figuring out where to like scale your beauty business or like figuring out which avenue you should take, or like which stream of income is right for you, I wouldn't try to dip your feet in all of them.
Pick one. I would
pick one and spend a long time considering like how that is going to look for you long term. Yep. And I think it's very important to consider burnout, because burnout is such a real thing and it's a terrible feeling. But like a lot of people just pick a different stream of income just to like give them something to do or like give them a little more street cred or whatever it is. But for me, I had to think of like, okay, my longevity in this industry, how can I not burn out? And for me, if I was to take the product route, which a lot of people were pushing me into, I think I would have burned out even quicker, because it's just like, that's not something I'm passionate about.
Nope.
And putting my face on little tiny boxes, just like, and communicating with suppliers, like that's somebody else's ministry. It's not mine.
It is a great opportunity, but it's not my great opportunity.
No. Yes. And for me, I was like, okay, how can I not burn out? How can I actually stay in the beauty industry, till the end of my career lifespan?
And you were like,
I needed a space that I was in complete control of.
Yep.
The environment, the design, the feel, the organization, the people, like everything. And for me, that had to be operating and owning the most beautiful, friendly salon suite in the entire world. For me, that had to happen in order for me to have longevity. I could not open a spa. I could not have employees. I couldn't even do training full time. Like I could have just done like a full-time education company, and just rented like kind of a warehouse office space and done that. But like that would have burned me out. Like I think you need to consider what will physically make you want to jump out of bed every morning, and do that with all your heart, even on the hard days, even when it's rainy, even when it's cold, even when the numbers suck, even when people aren't showing up. Like if there's something that you can do to avoid burnout and to stay in love with what you do, pursue that thing.
Period.
And so for me, that was salon suites.
Salon suites.
I love Lightheart.
No, it's great. And then the other thing with the studios too is like, we did them, and we only did them because we could figure out a way to do them and get a good like return on the investment that we made. But then also, I think there's a lot of value to the Lightheart brand of us having the salon suites, and it makes the education stuff more valuable because one, you have a beautiful place to train out of, but then two, like it shows that we're actually doing the stuff that we talk about. And so like
that's so important, because I mean like people want to take trainings from people that have done the thing.
Absolutely. And like, why would you want to learn how to open salon suites from someone who's never opened salon suites?
Whose salon suites are carpeted. Get those carpeted.
If you own carpeted salon suites, I know it's going to cost like 10 grand.
Get it out of here.
But replace the floors.
It's 2023.
It's 2023. No one owns carpets.
When I was looking for a space to rent in Arizona after the salon suite I was in closed down unexpectedly, and kicked us all into the streets before Christmas.
Oops.
I literally
right before Christmas.
That was
so sad.
Not very cool. I was literally running around town looking at salon suites to rent from, and Elliot, 5 out of 10 of them had carpet. They looked like an Olive Garden. The walls were brown.
I do love the Olive Garden chic salon suites.
No, they were like Tuscan. I'm like, what are we doing?
I feel like 5 years ago, every salon suite got together and said, okay, what design are we doing? And they all met at an Olive Garden to have this meeting.
And they're like, this looks good.
They're looking around. They're like, I mean, I don't think we could beat this.
No.
This is peak design.
No.
And so now every salon suite in Phoenix looks like the Olive Garden.
Well, they don't care. They never go in them.
That is true. They're busy in their Lake Tahoe chalets.
Yeah, for real. They don't care about their salon suites. I think if you're gonna do salon suites, for the love of God, make them cute. I'm begging you.
Please.
Because and literally
you can rent them for more money,
guys,
too.
Make them look like Lightheart. Take our idea. I don't care.
Use our branding. Put our side. We'll send you the files. No, I'm kidding.
No, I'm saying if you want to open
make it cute.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, I can't rent out my suites. How do you rent out your suites? Your suites with peace and love are ugly. They're ugly.
I didn't say it.
No, not in a bad way, but make them nice.
Make them cuter.
And
you can make them cuter without spending a lot of money too. Just paint the walls white.
Paint the walls
white. Paint the walls white.
Ours aren't, we don't have the fanciest lighting. I mean,
we do not. We have a tile roof.
But like try your best to make them so nice for people, and they'll be rented, I promise you.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, love you guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Love you so much.
Hope this was encouraging to you. I really do.
Hope it wasn't mind-numbing. Hope it was interesting.
It wasn't mind-numbing. It was very interesting.
You think so?
Yeah. I think it was just maybe mind-numbing for you because you think about these.
I do think about this all the time. So I was halfway through, I was like, this is boring.
No, these are very refreshing concepts for everyone listening.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, if you were not bored and you made it to the end, drop a comment so that we can know that it was good.
Before we finish, do you guys like Elliot's outfit?
I think it's pretty
good. Guys, we really
came
as we are today.
If you're listening, I am wearing my Once in a Blue Moose Alaska grizzly bear sweater.
I literally got that at a gift shop in Alaska.
I love it. It's one of my favorite sweaters. It's very comfy. It makes me feel safe.
Get you a man who's rocking Yeezys and a once in a blue moose sweatshirt.
That's me.
You know what? We're here to share knowledge with you. We're not here to.
The girls that get it,
We're not here to flex on you.
We're not.
If we wanted
Well,
to flex on you, we would have gotten
I'm here
ready
to
and
flex on
worn a
you.
blazer. And
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay,
well,
love
you guys so much.
We'll see you in
Smooches.
the next one. Bye.